Sometimes the sweetest revenge is watching your father realize that the daughter he's ashamed of is actually running the entire company, especially when he finds out in front of all his colleagues. I'm Jennifer Morgan, 35, and this is the story of how my father's attempt to hide me at his company party backfired spectacularly when everyone discovered I was the CEO. Growing up, I was never the daughter my father wanted. While other girls were playing with dolls and dreaming of princesses, I was reading business journals and studying market trends. Robert Morgan, my father, worked as a mid-level manager at Horizon Technologies, one of the largest tech companies in the country. He always dreamed of climbing the corporate ladder, but somehow never quite made it to the top. Business is a man's world, Jenny, he'd tell me whenever I expressed interest in his work. Focus on finding a good husband instead. But I had other plans. While he was pushing me to take home economics classes in high school, I was secretly taking advanced business and computer science courses. When he suggested I major in elementary education, like a proper young lady, I applied to business schools instead. The real conflict started when I got accepted to Wharton Business School. "What a waste of money," he complained to my mother. "She'll just get married and quit working anyway." I proved him wrong. Not only did I graduate top of my class, but I started my own tech consulting firm right out of college. Within 5 years, my company had become one of the most successful in the industry, though I kept a low profile and operated under my mother's maiden name, Zhang. My father never knew about my success. He was too busy trying to advance at Horizon Technologies, still stuck in middle management after 25 years. Whenever we met at family gatherings, he'd brag about his important position, while dismissing my career as playing at business. Then came the opportunity I'd been waiting for. Horizon Technologies, struggling to keep up with modern innovation, was looking for new leadership. Through a series of quiet negotiations and strategic moves, my company acquired a controlling interest. The board, impressed by my track record, appointed me as CEO. But I kept my identity private, using my mother's maiden name professionally. Only the board and top executives knew who I really was. I wanted to see how the company operated without the influence of personal connections. That's when I learned about the annual company party, my father's favorite event for brown-nosing his superiors. This year would be different, though. I decided to attend as the new CEO. The evening of the party, I arrived deliberately late, dressed in a perfectly tailored designer suit. My father was already there, proudly showing off his new tie to his colleagues. When he spotted me walking in, his face fell. "Jenny, what are you doing here?" "I was invited," I said simply. He grabbed my arm, pulling me aside. "Don't tell anyone you're my kid," he whispered urgently. "I can't have you embarrassing me in front of my colleagues. Just pretend to be someone's assistant or something." I smiled. "Don't worry, Dad. Everyone will know exactly who I am soon enough." He didn't like that answer. "Listen, Jenny, this is important. I'm up for a promotion to senior manager. I can't have you." But he never finished that sentence. Because at that moment, Richard Chun, the newly appointed COO, and my direct report, walked into our conversation. "Ms. Zhang," he exclaimed, then quickly corrected himself. "I mean Ms. Morgan. Welcome, Madam CEO." Dad's coffee cup shattered on the floor. The sound of breaking ceramic drew every eye in the room. My father stood frozen, coffee spreading across his new shoes, as Richard continued speaking. "We're so honored to have you here tonight. Your vision for the company's future is revolutionary." The look on my father's face was priceless. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water as he looked between me and Richard. "CEO," he finally managed to croak. "Oh yes," Richard enthused, not noticing my father's distress. "Ms. Morgan's acquisition of Horizon Technologies has already increased our stock price by 30%. Her leadership is exactly what we needed." My father's face had turned an interesting shade of pale. "Morgan acquisition?" I smiled sweetly. "Yes, Dad. Remember all those times you told me business was a man's world? Turns out it's not about gender. It's about vision, innovation, and determination. All those things you said I was wasting my time on." The room had gone silent. Everyone was watching this exchange, realization dawning on their faces as they connected the dots between the new CEO and the middle manager who'd just dropped his coffee. But, my father stammered. "You're just what, Dad? Just a woman? Just your embarrassing daughter? Or just the CEO of the company you've worked at for 25 years? Richard looked between us, finally catching on. "Mr. Morgan is your father?" I had no idea. "Yes," I confirmed. though he just asked me to pretend I wasn't related to him. Didn't want me embarrassing him at the party. The whispers started immediately. Colleagues who'd ignored me when I walked in were now desperately trying to catch my eye. My father's workplace friends suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere. Perhaps, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear, we should discuss your upcoming performance review, Dad. I believe you mentioned something about a promotion to senior manager. My father's knees actually buckled. Someone quickly brought him a chair. Now then, I addressed the room at large. I believe we have a party to enjoy. And yes, for those wondering, Robert Morgan is indeed my father, though he might wish otherwise at the moment. The next few hours were deliciously awkward. My father sat in his corner, declining offers of fresh coffee, while a parade of executives and managers came to introduce themselves to me. Each time someone addressed me as Madam CEO, he seemed to sink lower in his chair. Eventually, he found his voice enough to approach me. Ms. Morgan. Dad will do, I said calmly. Though earlier you preferred, I didn't use that title. I didn't know, he said weakly. You never asked, I pointed out. You were too busy telling me what I couldn't do to notice what I was actually doing. The changes at Horizon Technologies started immediately. I implemented new policies, restructured departments, and brought in fresh talent. My father's department was due for a complete overhaul. Mr. Morgan, I said during our first official meeting, your performance reviews over the past 5 years have been mediocre at best. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Ms. Morgan, your supervisor reports that you resist new technologies, dismiss innovative ideas, and show particular bias against female employees. Sound familiar? He had the grace to look ashamed. Normally, I continued, this would be grounds for termination. However, I believe in giving people chances to prove themselves. Just like I wished you'd given me. What do you mean? You have 2 choices, Dad. You can retire with a generous package, or you can transfer to our new innovation department, under a female supervisor, and learn how modern business really works. Your choice. To my surprise, he chose the second option. Maybe he finally realized that his outdated views had held him back all these years. His new supervisor, Sarah Chun, was a brilliant young executive I'd brought in from my previous company. She had strict orders to treat him like any other employee. No special treatment just because he was the CEO's father. The transformation wasn't easy for him. He struggled with taking orders from someone younger than him, especially a woman. But gradually, something interesting happened. He started to learn. Jenny, he said during a family dinner 3 months later. Ms. Morgan. Dad is still fine outside the office, I assured him. I owe you an apology, he said. Several apologies, actually. I was wrong about, well, everything. I waited, letting him continue. Sarah showed me the projection models you developed. They're brilliant. And the new AI integration system. I never would have understood any of this if you hadn't forced me to learn. Are you embarrassed to have me as your boss now? I asked. He shook his head. I'm embarrassed that I was ever embarrassed by you. You've accomplished more in your career than I ever did, and you did it despite my lack of support. The company flourished under my leadership. We expanded into new markets, developed cutting-edge technologies, and our stock price doubled within the first year. My father, surprisingly, became one of our most enthusiastic advocates for change. You have to think differently now. I overheard him telling a younger colleague who was resistant to new ideas. I learned that lesson the hard way. During the next annual company party, things were very different. My father proudly stood by my side as I gave my speech about innovation and progress. And none of this would be possible without our dedicated employees, I said, including those who were willing to admit they were wrong and learn new ways of thinking. My father actually wiped away a tear. The story of how I became my father's boss's boss became something of a legend in corporate circles. People loved hearing about the middle manager who told his CEO daughter to pretend she wasn't related to him. But the real story wasn't about embarrassment or revenge. It was about transformation, both of a company and a relationship. 5 years after that first party, my father finally retired. Not because he had to, but because he'd finally learned everything he wanted to learn about modern business. At his retirement party, he gave a speech that surprised everyone. When my daughter was young, he began, I told her that business was a man's world. I told her to focus on finding a husband instead of a career. I couldn't have been more wrong. She didn't just enter the business world, she revolutionized it. And in doing so, she taught her old-fashioned father that success knows no gender. Looking around the room at all the young women he now mentored, the innovative projects he'd supported, and the modern company we'd built together, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't proving someone wrong. It's helping them learn how to be right. My father and I have a different relationship now. He calls me for business advice, proudly tells his friends about his CEO daughter, and even admits that his greatest career achievement was learning to work in a company led by a woman, specifically his daughter. Last week, he brought his granddaughter, my niece, to take your child to work day. I overheard him telling her, "You can be anything you want to be in business. Just look at your Aunt Jenny. She runs this whole company." "But Grandpa," she said, "I thought you said business was a man's world?" He laughed. "I used to think that." Then your aunt dropped a coffee cup worth of wisdom on me. The company continues to grow and evolve. We've expanded globally, acquired more companies, and become a leader in technological innovation. My father often jokes that his greatest contribution to Horizon Technologies was raising a daughter who knew better than to listen to him. And that broken coffee cup from the party? I had it framed. It sits in my office as a reminder that sometimes the sweetest success is helping others shatter their own limitations. Because in the end, the most satisfying revenge isn't just proving someone wrong about you. It's helping them become right about themselves.